We apologize for interrupting your doom scrolling. Now, for some positive leftist news.
Stay tuned until the end of the episode for an exciting offer from MeansTV, your #1 spot for worker-owned media. After a relentless 5-year global boycott campaign, Puma has announced it would end its sponsorship of the Israel Football Association by December 31st, 2024, yesterday. The boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement had spent years calling out Puma's complicity in Israel's apartheid policies, which include sponsoring teams in illegal Israeli settlements. Despite Puma's attempts to justify its partnership, public pressure from the campaign, along with human rights groups like Amnesty International, compelled the change. The announcement came a year in advance, a rare move in sponsorship agreements, signaling the company's inability to withstand the global boycott. Palestinian activists are now calling on Araya, IFA's new sponsor, to immediately sever ties with the IFA to avoid complicity in Israel's ongoing war crimes. Should Araya proceed with the sponsorship, the BDS movement has vowed to launch a targeted boycott campaign against that brand too. A welcomed win, and on to the next. In a show of international solidarity, Caracas, Venezuela hosted the International Conference of Solidarity with Palestine at the end of November, marking the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. With over 250 participants from 53 countries and 119 organizations, the conference boldly affirmed a collective commitment to ending Israel's brutal aggression in West Asia and supporting the Palestinian struggle for justice. The event, organized under the slogan, "From Venezuela to Palestine, we will live and we will be victorious," was a clarion call for global solidarity. President Nicolas Maduro reinforced the importance of anti-imperialist resistance, highlighting the importance of countering media manipulation and disinformation campaigns led by imperialist forces, particularly the US and Israel. The conference underscored the deep connection between the Bolivarian Revolution and the Palestinian Liberation Movement. Key discussions at the conference focused on practical strategies to amplify Palestinian voices, including coordinated grassroots activism, media campaigns, and diplomatic pressure. In a world still deeply divided by imperialism and occupation, the conference in Caracas stands as a testament to the power of solidarity and the unwavering resistance of the Palestinian people. The call to action is clear: unite, resist, and fight for a free and just world. And 'tis the season for general strikes. Italy's general strike this season, led by CGIL and UIL, saw over 70% participation across multiple sectors, with 500,000 people taking to the streets in more than 43 demonstrations. The strike saw overwhelming support across multiple sectors, such as the engineering, agro-industry, chemical, textile, and transport sectors, which saw 79 to 100% worker participation. The strike sent a powerful message. Italy's workers are demanding change. From higher wages to better public services, the call for justice echoes loudly across the country. The mobilization was a clear statement of solidarity and resistance against the status quo. In late November, Greece was similarly paralyzed by a powerful 24-hour general strike, as workers from every sector flooded the streets in cities across the country. The massive mobilization, which followed a media strike the day before, was a unified outcry against the government's neoliberal policies, soaring living costs, and escalating militarization under NATO demands. The strike, organized by the All Workers Militant Front, called for the repeal of anti-worker laws, including those that extend working hours, cut wages, and limit union organizing. Unions are demanding wage restoration, better working conditions, and an end to laws that privatize essential public services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. They condemn the government's prioritization of military spending over the needs of its people, citing billions spent on NATO armaments, money that could otherwise fund hospitals and basic public services. The strike's internationalist spirit was evident in the visible support for Palestine, as marchers raised Palestinian flags and called for an end to the genocide. As Greece faces soaring costs and political neglect, this general strike marks a pivotal moment in the class struggle. All power to the workers. In a powerful victory, members of Teamsters Local 283 at Marathon Petroleum's Detroit refinery have ratified a new contract ending a grueling 101-day strike that exposed the gruesome nature of corporate greed. Forced to the picket line in September after Marathon refused to negotiate in good faith, the workers stood firm, demanding fair wages, benefits, and recognition for the vital role they play in the refinery's operations. Despite making billions in profits, Marathon fought tooth and nail against rewarding the workers who make their operation run safely and efficiently, said Steve Hicks, president of Local 283. But after 101 days on strike, we forced them to recognize the value of the Teamsters who power the Detroit refinery. The new contract, ratified just ahead of the holiday season, includes a 24.5% wage increase, fully employer-paid health care, union security, and access to the Teamsters Central States Pension Fund. It is a testament to the power of collective action, demonstrating that when workers unite and stand strong, they can force even the most powerful corporations to concede to their demands. Congratulations to the organizers. As Amazon's busiest and most profitable time of year unfolded, workers struck back, using the holiday season as a strategic moment to demand better working conditions, pay, and union recognition in the largest strike against Amazon in U.S. history. Thousands of Amazon employees, starting with those at the JFK 8 warehouse in Staten Island, authorized a strike after the company failed to meet their deadline for contract negotiations by December 15th. The strike threat quickly spread to facilities in Chicago, Atlanta, and Queens. "This is the time to hit them where it hurts," said Luke Renee, a worker at Amazon's DBK4 delivery station in Queens. "Amazon's record sales and profits depend on workers like us, and we're taking a stand for better wages, safety, and job security." The workers' strike is also fueled by the company's long-standing anti-union stance. Since the JFK 8 warehouse in Staten Island became the first Amazon facility in the U.S. to unionize in 2022, Amazon has failed to negotiate a contract with the workers, pushing them to escalate their actions. The International Brotherhood of Teamsters, which now represents thousands of Amazon workers, has been organizing similar efforts at facilities across the country. As the strike gathers momentum, it sends a clear message to Amazon and its billionaire founder Jeff Bezos. Workers are no longer willing to accept exploitation and unsafe conditions to line billionaires' pockets. Starbucks workers are also using their leverage over the holiday season to fight to lessen their exploitation. Members of the Starbucks Workers Union that represents more than 10,000 baristas walked off their jobs in multiple U.S. cities on December 20th, citing unresolved issues over wages, staffing, and schedules. This is the latest in a series of labor actions that have picked up pace across service industries, following a period when workers at manufacturers in the automotive, aerospace, and rail industries won substantial concessions from employers. Solidarity with all the striking workers. On December 5th, a powerful coalition of elected officials, labor leaders, and solidarity organizations issued a joint call demanding that President Biden remove Cuba from the U.S. state sponsors of terrorism list. This collective action marks a significant moment in the labor movement as 21 unions and leaders unite to push for progressive foreign policies alongside domestic workers' rights. In a letter addressed to Biden, the coalition outlined the dire humanitarian crisis facing Cuba, exacerbated by the widespread power outages, severe food shortages, and an overwhelmed healthcare system. These hardships have been intensified by the unjust and inhumane embargo, along with natural disasters like hurricanes and earthquakes, making the urgent need for international support even more pressing. The letter stresses that Cuba's suffering is compounded by the Trump administration's designation of the island as a state sponsor of terrorism, a label that the Biden administration has yet to lift. The letter also urges Biden to lift the 243 sanctions imposed by the Trump administration and to send much-needed humanitarian aid to the island. Unions, including the United Auto Workers, the United Electrical, Radio, and Machine Workers of America, and the Professional Staff Congress CUNY, have increasingly mobilized for a more progressive, anti-imperialist foreign policy, signaling the future where workers' movements stand in solidarity not just for local issues, but for international justice as well. European movements are also calling for an end to the Cuban blockade. Over 300 representatives from social movements, trade unions, and political organizations gathered in Paris in late November for the 19th European Continental Meeting of Solidarity with Cuba. The event was a powerful call for an end to the U.S.-imposed blockade and a denouncement of the widespread disinformation campaigns that hinder the island's socialist project. Participants held a protest in central Paris on the final day, demanding that European countries break from U.S. policy and engage with Cuba on terms that reflect the will of the European people, not Washington's interests. The meeting concluded with a call for the European Union to remove obstacles in its relations with Cuba, urging member states to reject U.S. interference. Remember that the world overwhelmingly supports ending the U.S.-led blockade, with only the US and Israel voting against lifting the unjust embargo. And tens of thousands of Cubans themselves marched in front of the US Embassy in Havana on December 20th to protest the long-standing sanctions in the waning weeks of the Biden administration, and as the island's government worries about tougher treatment under President-elect Donald Trump. This action once again demonstrates the unity of the Cuban people around the condemnation of the blockade that the United States has unilaterally imposed on Cuba, a measure that has delayed the progress of the Cuban economy and which, despite the numerous times that the United Nations General Assembly has voted to end it, continues to be in force. In a major victory for workers, the Food Empowerment Project announced the end of its 2-year boycott against Amy's Kitchen, following successful negotiations for improved workplace safety, higher wages, and better benefits. The boycott, which began in January 2022, was driven by workers demanding fair treatment in the face of unsafe working conditions and stagnant pay. The company, which faced intense pressure from global activists, entered negotiations after 8 months of heated discussions. These talks resulted in key agreements around pay increases and safety standards, and the company vowed to avoid using labor relations consultants and committed to improving communication and transparency with employees. Lauren Ornelas, founder of FEP, said this campaign has proven that when workers and communities come together, they can achieve real change. A federal judge in Florida sentenced members of a Pan-Africanist group known as the Uhuru 3 to 3 years of probation, meaning they will avoid prison time and pay no fine in a legal saga that saw the anti-war activists targeted for their vocal criticism of U.S. policy. The members of the African People's Socialist Party were charged with conspiring with the Russian government to sow discord and interfere in U.S. elections, which the accused have rejected as ridiculous. Uhuru members and allies celebrated the sentencing at a press conference outside the U.S. District Courthouse in Tampa, Florida. Members of Hands Off Uhuru, a group advocating for the release of the Uhuru 3, hosted a live stream outside the courthouse with activists including Fred Hampton Jr., the son of Illinois Black Panther Chair Fred Hampton. Omali Yeshitela, one of the Uhuru 3, co-founded the African People's Socialist Party in 1972. The organization advocates for reparations for Black Americans and against U.S. imperialism, making it a target of U.S. authorities. On December 9th, activists in Philadelphia marked the 43rd anniversary of Mumia Abu-Jamal's unjust imprisonment with a teach-in and rally demanding his freedom. Abu-Jamal, former Black Panther and prominent political prisoner, was wrongfully convicted of the 1981 murder of Philadelphia police officer Daniel Faulkner in a trial marred by racism and police misconduct. The teach-in at Community College of Philadelphia, organized by the Black Studies Department and Mobilization for Mumia, featured a phone call from Abu-Jamal, who spoke out against the prison industrial complex and police violence, emphasizing that increased policing does not reduce crime but serves corporate interests. The event included discussions on political prisoners, the struggle against mass incarceration, and solidarity movements worldwide. In a powerful act of resistance against Australia's coal export industry, climate activists forced a ship to turn back from the port of Newcastle in late November as 173 protesters staged a 50-hour blockade in the shipping channel. The protest, organized by the climate group Rising Tide, targeted the world's largest thermal coal export terminal, located in New South Wales. Police arrested all 173 individuals, including 14 miners, who refused to leave the water and shipping channel. Undeterred by this, later in the week, some of the protesters traveled to the capital, Canberra, to disrupt the functioning of Parliament. This led to a further 22 people being arrested for occupying the main foyer of the building. Rising Tide, the climate activist group behind the action, stated that the targeted vessel was a coal ship, underscoring the direct link between Australia's coal exports and the global climate crisis. "We cannot stand by while our government continues to export fossil fuels that harm our planet," a representative said. "This protest is a wake-up call to stop this destruction." As climate change intensifies, protesters like these are courageously putting their bodies on the line to demand urgent action and challenge the political power of the fossil fuel industry. In a major scientific breakthrough, researchers in China have unveiled a sponge that could be the key to solving the global microplastic crisis. A peer-reviewed study published in Science Advances shows that the material absorbs between 98% and 99.9% of microplastics from water, offering a promising solution to one of humanity's most pressing environmental challenges. According to the University of Wuhan, where the study was conducted, This sponge can be produced at scale, making it a feasible option for widespread microplastic filtration. As one researcher stated, this material holds great promise for cleaning our water and protecting ecosystems from the devastating effects of microplastic contamination. In a groundbreaking win against the fossil fuel industry, Just Stop Oil has successfully halted the extraction of 4.4 billion barrels of oil in the North Sea, a move that will prevent over 1.8 billion tons of CO2 from being released into the atmosphere. This victory comes after years of tireless campaigning, direct action, and escalating pressure on politicians, culminating in Labour's commitment to halt new oil and gas licensing in the UK. Campaigners behind Just Stop Oil said every arrest, every imprisonment has contributed to the 4.4 billion barrels of oil that will now remain safely underground. Despite immense state repression, the movement has demonstrated remarkable effectiveness, with £5 million in funding achieving a 2,500 times greater impact than traditional carbon offset schemes. Just Stop Oil remains resolute in its commitment to dismantle the fossil fuel economy. The campaign is now focused on sustaining momentum for 2025, urging the public to continue supporting a resistance to fossil fuels. A monumental win. New Zealand has announced plans to phase out greyhound racing by 2026, citing persistent concerns over the high injury rates among the dogs. Racing Minister Winston Peters unveiled the proposal on the 10th of December, highlighting the government's commitment to prioritizing animal welfare after a decade of reviews revealing inadequate safety measures. While fewer dogs are dying, injury rates, though slightly improved, remain unacceptably high, Peters stated. Peters noted that an advisory committee will assist in rehoming the 2,900 greyhounds involved in racing, with a bill to end the sport expected in 2025. In a historic decision, Everett, Washington has granted the Snohomish River watershed legal rights to exist, regenerate, and flourish, marking a significant step in the global rights of nature movement. Voters approved the groundbreaking initiative with 57% support, giving the watershed enforceable rights that can be defended in court. This makes Everett the latest community in the U.S. to recognize the inherent rights of ecosystems to thrive. The law allows residents, organizations, and city agencies to bring lawsuits if the watershed's rights are violated, and if a court finds wrongdoing, the responsible party could face damages aimed at restoring the ecosystem. This is a game changer for the environment, said Abby Ludwig, spokesperson for the Political Action Committee standing for Washington. Everett is boldly safeguarding its natural resources, empowering nature with both a voice and the legal tools it needs to defend itself. The new law is part of a broader, fast-growing global movement with similar rights granted to ecosystems in countries like Ecuador and New Zealand. By enacting this law, Everett is joining those setting a precedent that nature's rights must be defended by every means possible. If you have good news from the current month, please send your stories to mexi@protonmail.com. And as mentioned, we have a special offer for viewers from MeansTV, which is a worker-owned cooperative dedicated to supporting and producing anti-capitalist media. The streaming service hosts us along with other rad creators like Second Thought and Luna Oy, full-length documentaries like Abby Martin's Gaza Fights for Freedom, and Means original content like Means Morning News, Seriously Wrong's Papa and Boy, and much more. We're happy to announce that we are now able to offer viewers a discount on joining MeansTV. If you sign up using our link and code, which is MEXI, you'll get 20% off your first month, which comes to $7.99. Or you could go with the annual option and get 20% off the entire year. Signing up using our code not only directly contributes to the financial sustainability of the Means Cooperative Media Project, but it's also a great way to support our channel. So if you have the means, consider taking us up on this discount. The link and code are in the description box below. Thank you to Javi for the Positive News Jams. Thank you to Cosmo for the Positive News background. Thank you to Catherine and me for scriptwriting and production. And yours truly again for hosting and editing this one. If you'd like to support the show, please go to patreon.com/positiveleftistnews. You can give us a one-time tip. The link is in the description box below.